The smell of cinnamon rolls filled our living room as my wife unwrapped the diamond earrings I'd spent 3 months saving for. But instead of the joy I expected to see, her face twisted into something I'd never witnessed in our 7 years together. She set the velvet box down like it was contaminated, looked me dead in the eyes, and said words that would change everything. "I wish you had never met me. Greg is a lot better. My name is Scott Adkins. I'm 32 years old. And until that moment on Christmas morning, I thought I had a pretty good life. Software developer, nice house, what I believed was a loving marriage. Funny how quickly illusions shatter, like those expensive ornaments my mother-in-law kept knocking off our tree after her third glass of wine." Before I continue, I want to thank you all for being here with me today. Please leave a comment below where you're watching from and what time it is right now. Your support means everything to me. The living room was packed with both our families. My parents had driven 6 hours to be here. Her sister was recording everything for her Instagram stories, though she'd later become my unexpected ally. My brother was mid-bite into a sugar cookie shaped like a reindeer when Jennifer dropped her bomb. The cookie never made it to his mouth. It just hung there, suspended in shock, kind of like how I felt my whole life was suddenly hanging. Jennifer stood up, still in the pajamas I'd bought her last Christmas, the ones with little penguins that said "chill out" across the front. The irony wasn't lost on me. She definitely wasn't chilling out. Her hands were shaking, but not from nervousness. It was excitement. She was actually excited to destroy me in front of everyone I loved. "I'm done pretending," she announced to the room like she was giving a TED Talk on cruelty. "Greg from work makes me feel alive. He's successful, he's ambitious, and he doesn't bore me to death with his stupid coding projects and his fantasy football leagues." My mother dropped her coffee mug. It shattered on the hardwood floor I'd installed myself last summer while Jennifer was at one of her book clubs. I now suspected those book clubs involved a very different kind of story time with Greg. The room erupted. My dad, who hadn't raised his voice since the Cubs lost the World Series in 2003, stood up so fast his back cracked. Jennifer's mother was trying to calm everyone down while simultaneously eyeing the exits. But me? I did something that surprised everyone, especially myself. I smiled. Not a crazy smile, but the kind of smile you get when you finally understand a joke that everyone else got 5 minutes ago. "Consider your last wish granted," I said, my voice steady as a surgeon's hand. "You want to have never met me? Let's make that happen." Jennifer's face went through more emotions than a teenager's TikTok feed. Confusion, anger, then a flicker of fear when she realized I wasn't falling apart like she'd planned. This was supposed to be her big moment, her dramatic exit where I'd beg and she'd walk out triumphant. Instead, I was already walking toward the Christmas tree, reaching for the receipt folder I kept in the desk drawer. "What are you doing?" she demanded, her voice losing that confident edge. "Taking back Christmas," I said, channeling my inner Grinch but with better motivation. "Starting with those earrings, then the bracelet from your birthday. Oh, and the surprise spa weekend I booked for New Year's, canceled as of..." I checked my phone. Now, her sister Qley, who'd been recording this whole disaster, slowly turned her phone toward Jennifer. "Girl, you just messed up big time," she muttered, and I knew then I had my first ally in what was about to become the messiest unwrapping of a marriage anyone had ever seen. The next 72 hours revealed more plot twists than a soap opera writer on overtime. While Jennifer stormed out of our house that Christmas morning, I started connecting dots that had been staring me in the face for months. The overtime that never showed up on her paycheck. The new lingerie that she claimed was from a Victoria's Secret sale but never appeared on our credit card. The way she'd guard her phone like it contained nuclear launch codes. But here's where it gets interesting. Greg wasn't just some random coworker she'd fallen for. Greg Thompson was my former college roommate, the guy who'd cried on my shoulder when his girlfriend dumped him junior year. The same Greg I'd helped get a job at Jennifer's company when he was unemployed and about to lose his apartment. I'd literally written his recommendation letter. Talk about helping someone stab you in the back. I'd basically handed him the knife and showed him where to aim. Qley showed up at my door the day after Christmas with a flash drive and a bottle of bourbon. "You're gonna need both of these," she said, pushing past me into the house that still smelled like betrayal and cinnamon rolls. The flash drive contained screenshots of Jennifer's messages to her friends, bragging about her affair. Not just admitting it, but actually bragging. She'd been planning this Christmas revelation for weeks, wanting maximum damage for what she called my pathetic devotion. There was There was even a group chat called Operation Trading Up, where she and her 3 closest friends strategized about the best way to humiliate me. Her friend Melissa had suggested doing it at my office party. Another friend, Rachel, voted for my birthday. But Jennifer wanted the Christmas crowd for what she called maximum impact with minimal effort. Your sister is something else, I told Qley, who was already on her second bourbon. Half-sister, Qley corrected quickly, and I've been watching her pull this crap since high school, but you're the first guy who didn't crumble. Mom's losing her mind, by the way. She's been calling Jennifer every hour, and Jennifer won't pick up because she's at Greg's place. That's when I dropped my first bomb. Greg's married. Qley's bourbon went down the wrong pipe. After she stopped coughing, she stared at me like I just told her Santa was real, but worked for the IRS. What? Married. 2 kids. Wife's name is Patricia. She's a pediatric nurse who thinks her husband is working late on a special project. I pulled up Patricia's Facebook on my laptop. Happy family photos from Thanksgiving stared back at us. Greg's arm around his wife. Their 2 boys making silly faces at the camera. How long have you known? Qley asked. About 40 minutes. I did some digging after you texted me that Jennifer was at his place. Turns out Greg's been renting a studio apartment specifically for his affairs. Plural. Jennifer isn't even his only side piece. Qley laughed, but it was the kind of laugh that comes out when you realize the universe has a twisted sense of humor. She thinks she's trading up to a better model, but she's actually becoming part of a timeshare program. The financial betrayal started revealing itself when I checked our joint accounts. Small transfers here and there, nothing that would trigger alerts, but they added up to almost $15,000 over 6 months. She'd been building her independence fund with my overtime pay while I thought we were saving for a house renovation. The kitchen remodel we'd planned, that money was sitting in an account I didn't even know existed. But the real kicker came when I found the email. Jennifer had forgotten that our laptops were synced to the same cloud storage. There it was, dated 2 weeks before Christmas. Her resignation letter from her job, effective January 1st. She was planning to quit and have Greg support her while she found herself. She'd even mentioned in the email that she wouldn't need the usual 2 weeks notice because her boyfriend, she actually used that word in a professional document, was a senior manager and could smooth things over. By December 27th, I'd transformed into the most efficient reverse Santa Claus you've ever seen. Armed with receipts, credit card statements, and a determination that would make debt collectors jealous, I began Operation Take It Back. And honestly, it was better than therapy. The jewelry was easy, still had all the boxes, certificates of authenticity, and receipts. The store manager at Cartier recognized me. I'd been in there so many times over the years, trying to find the perfect pieces for Jennifer. Return? He asked, his expression sympathetic. Exchange, I corrected. For store credit, I'm thinking a nice watch for myself. Jennifer's mother, Sharon, called while I was at the mall. Scott, honey, this is all just a misunderstanding. Jennifer's going through something. Maybe it's that quarter-life crisis thing I read about in Oprah's magazine. Sharon, she's 34. That ship has sailed, hit an iceberg, and sunk like the Titanic. But you love each other. I loved who I thought she was. Turns out I was married to a fiction novel, and not even a good one. More like those free books you get on Kindle that have 5-star reviews from the author's mom. Sharon sighed. She wants to come get her things. Tell her to bring a U-Haul. And Greg, he's going to need the muscle because I'm not helping. Here's where it gets beautifully petty. Every gift I'd given Jennifer over the years that I could legally reclaim, I did. The expensive KitchenAid mixer she'd begged for but used exactly twice, returned. The Peloton bike that had become the world's most expensive coat rack, sold to my coworker who actually exercised. The designer handbags I'd bought for her birthdays? Consignment shop. Even the fuzzy slippers from last Valentine's Day went back to Target. Qley helped me document everything, taking photos like she was creating an art exhibition called The Dissolution of Delusional Love. She even made labels. Exhibit A, the bread maker that never made bread. Retail value, $300. Emotional value, negative infinity. But the real victory came when I discovered Jennifer had already given Greg the watch I'd bought her for our anniversary. A classic Rolex I'd saved for 2 years to afford. She'd given my gift to her affair partner. The problem? It was engraved with my initials and our wedding date, Before I continue with what happened next, I want to take a quick moment to say, if you're enjoying this story, please hit that subscribe button and leave a like. It really helps me share more of these wild but true experiences. Now, back to Greg's priceless reaction. I called Greg's office. His assistant answered, and I asked to be transferred. When he picked up, his voice was all corporate smooth. Greg Thompson. Hey buddy, it's Scott. Quick question. How's my watch working out for you? The silence was so long I thought the call had dropped. Then came the stammering. What? How did you? The engraving must have been a surprise, huh? S.A. Forever Yours, June 15th, 2018. Bet Patricia would love to know why you're wearing a watch with another man's initials and a wedding date that isn't yours. You wouldn't I? Check your email. I'd sent him photos Qley had found on Jennifer's Instagram stories. Him wearing my watch at their company Christmas party. The engraving visible in one perfectly timed shot where he was raising a champagne glass. God bless Qley's screenshot addiction. The watch appeared on my doorstep the next morning in an Amazon box, wrapped in newspaper, like it was evidence from a crime scene. Which, in a way, it was. Here's something they don't tell you about marriage. The person who keeps the boring paperwork usually wins the war. While Jennifer was busy playing house with Greg, I was in my home office, building a case that would make divorce lawyers weep with joy. 3 days after Christmas, I met with Richardson, the best family attorney in the state. He looked like Colonel Sanders if Colonel Sanders had gone to Harvard Law and drove a Tesla. His office walls were covered with photos of him on various boats, each one bigger than the last. This man knew how to win. So, Mr. Adkins, he said, reviewing the folder I'd brought, your wife announced her affair publicly. You have financial records of embezzlement and, he paused, his eyebrows climbing toward his hairline. A prenuptial agreement? Ah yes, the prenup. The beautiful, ironclad, notarized prenup that Jennifer had signed when we were young, and she was convinced she'd be the next Martha Stewart. Back then she had laughed about it. Why would I ever want your student loans and comic book collection? She'd joked. Well, the joke's on her now because those comics are worth more than her car, and the prenup specifically stated that infidelity would result in forfeiture of any claim to marital assets acquired before or during the marriage. She probably forgot this existed, Richardson mused, flipping through the pages. This is comprehensive. Who drew this up? Her father. He's old school. Insisted on it before he'd give his blessing. Said any man marrying his daughter needed protection. Richardson actually laughed. Her own father's paranoia is about to save you a fortune. This is poetic. But the real chess move came when I contacted Patricia, Greg's wife. I didn't want to be the one to destroy another family, but she deserved to know. I met her at a coffee shop downtown. She arrived looking confused, but put together. The kind of woman who probably had her life organized in color-coded folders. I'm sorry to be the one to tell you this, I began, sliding a folder across the table. She opened it, saw the first photo. Greg and Jennifer at what was clearly not a work meeting, unless work meetings now involved feeding each other sushi in intimate corners of restaurants, and her face went through the stages of grief in about 30 seconds. How long? She asked, her voice steady but her hands shaking. 6 months that I can prove, maybe longer. She flipped through more evidence. Messages, receipts, the apartment lease with Greg's signature. This apartment, we've been struggling to pay for our kid's school while he's been renting a love nest. I'm sorry. Patricia closed the folder, took a deep breath, and then smiled. It was the smile of a woman who just figured out exactly how she was going to handle this. Don't be sorry. You just gave me the best Christmas gift ever. Freedom with financial benefits. Turns out Patricia came from money, old money, railroad and oil money, the kind of money that had its own lawyers on retainer just waiting for something interesting to happen. She'd married Greg against her family's wishes, and they'd been waiting for him to screw up ever since. No. My father's going to have a field day with this, she said, actually looking happy. He never liked Greg, called him a social climbing weasel with delusions of adequacy. The next development came from an unexpected source. Jennifer's workplace. Remember that resignation letter she'd written? The one where she mentioned her boyfriend Greg? Well, someone, and I'm not saying it was me, but I'm not saying it wasn't, forwarded that to HR along with some concerns about potential workplace harassment and misuse of company resources. Turns out Greg and Jennifer had been using company credit cards for their afternoon rendezvous. filing them as client meetings. They'd been having their affair on company time, in company property, specifically the executive conference room after hours, which they didn't know had security cameras. The IT department had some very interesting footage of strategic planning sessions that looked more like strategic undressing sessions. My phone buzzed with a text from Qley. Jen just called Mom crying. She and Greg are both suspended pending investigation. Mom told her to call a lawyer. Jen said she doesn't need one because Greg will handle it. Mom laughed and hung up. Brutal. The beautiful thing about consequences is that they tend to compound, like interest on a debt you didn't know you had. Greg was about to learn that his wife's family didn't just have money, they had connections. The kind of connections that could make someone unemployable in any major corporation within a 500-mile radius. New Year's Eve arrived with the kind of drama usually reserved for reality TV season finales. Jennifer's family had planned their annual dinner party, and Sharon, ever the optimist, insisted everyone attend to work things out like adults. What she didn't know was that I'd turned this dinner into my own personal screening of This Is Your Life, Cheaters Edition. I arrived fashionably late, wearing the new watch I'd bought myself with the store credit from Jennifer's returned jewelry. My brother Jake came as my plus one, armed with a phone fully charged and ready to record whatever went down. The dining room was tense enough to make a pressure cooker jealous. Jennifer sat at the far end of the table, wearing a dress I didn't recognize, probably bought with my embezzled money. Greg was beside her, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else, possibly including jail. What Jennifer didn't know was that Patricia was about to make her entrance. Before we eat, I announced, standing up with my glass of wine, I'd like to share something special with everyone. A little presentation I've been working on. Jennifer's face went white. Scott, this isn't the time. Oh, but it is. You see, everyone here deserves to know what they're celebrating. I pulled out my laptop and connected it to Sharon's smart TV. The title slide read, A Timeline of Deception, How Jennifer and Greg Stole Christmas, and everything else. The room erupted. Sharon tried to grab the remote, but Qley was faster, holding it above her head like a trophy. Mom, you need to see this. We all do. The presentation was a masterpiece, if I do say so myself. Slide by slide, I laid out the affair, complete with timestamps, receipts, and Jennifer's own words from her group chat. The room was silent except for the occasional gasp from Sharon and a muttered "damn" from Jake. Slide 12 was my favorite. Financial fraud for dummies. It showed every transaction Jennifer had made, moving our money into her secret account. Her uncle, who happened to be a retired IRS agent, adjusted his glasses and leaned forward. That's wire fraud, Jennifer. That's federal. Greg stood up to leave, but that's when the doorbell rang. Patricia walked in looking like $1 million, probably because she was about to take half of Greg's everything. Behind her was her father, a man who looked like he could buy and sell everyone in the room before his morning coffee. Sorry I'm late, Patricia said sweetly, though her eyes were anything but sweet when they landed on Greg. I thought I should meet the woman who's been borrowing my husband. Jennifer actually tried to play victim. I didn't know he was married. Patricia laughed. It wasn't a nice laugh. Honey, you were at our company picnic. You met our kids. I have photos of you holding our youngest at the face painting station. That's when Patricia's father spoke up. Mr. Thompson, I believe you have something that belongs to my daughter. Several somethings, actually, including about $2 million in marital assets you've been trying to hide in offshore accounts. Greg's face went from pale to transparent. How did you, son? I own the bank where you thought you were being clever. Did you really think a mid-level manager could outsmart forensic accountants who uncover international money laundering? The dinner became a beautiful disaster. Sharon was crying into her mashed potatoes. Jennifer's father, who'd been silent until now, stood up and looked at his daughter. The prenup stands. You get nothing, and you're out of the will until you get your life together. Jennifer turned to Greg, expecting support, but he was on his phone, probably checking if his passport was still valid. This is all your fault, she screamed at me. No, I said calmly, serving myself some turkey. This is all your choice. I just provided the PowerPoint. By the way, this turkey is excellent, Sharon. Qley stood up next, and I thought she was going to make a toast. Instead, she looked at Jennifer and said, I've been documenting everything for a podcast I'm starting. It's called My Sister Ruined Christmas. Episode 1 drops tomorrow. The evening ended with Greg trying to sneak out the back door, only to find his car had been towed. Turns out Patricia had reported it stolen since it was in her name. He had to call an Uber, but his credit cards had been frozen. Watching him beg Jennifer for ride money while she screamed at him about ruining her life was better than anything Netflix could offer. The first Monday of January was supposed to be Jennifer and Greg's fresh start at work. Instead, it became their professional funeral. I arrived at my own office to find I had 17 missed calls from former mutual friends wanting the tea, as the kids say. But the real action was happening across town at Jennifer's company. My friend Mark worked in IT there and gave me play-by-play updates that were better than sports commentary. 9 a.m., Greg and Jennifer arrived separately, trying to act like nothing happened. The entire office already knew everything thanks to the company gossip network, which operated faster than their fiber optic internet. 9:30 a.m., HR called them both in for separate meetings. Jennifer went first, walking in confident, walking out crying. 10 a.m., Greg's turn. He brought a lawyer. The lawyer left after 5 minutes, apparently telling Greg he was on his own. 10:45 a.m., the CEO himself showed up. This wasn't normal. CEOs don't usually handle HR issues unless something is catastrophically bad. 11 a.m., security started boxing up Greg's office. 20 years of career achievements fitted into 3 cardboard boxes. His nameplate went in the trash. Here's what I learned later. The investigation revealed Greg and Jennifer had used company resources for their affair to the tune of about $50,000. Business trips that were actually romantic getaways. Client dinners that were dates. The conference room activities were just the embarrassing cherry on top of a fraudulent sundae. But the worst part for Greg? He'd been under consideration for a promotion to VP. The position came with a $500,000 salary and stock options. Instead, it went to Margaret, a woman Greg had repeatedly passed over for projects because he didn't think she was leadership material. Margaret's first act as VP, personally escorting Greg out of the building. Jennifer didn't get fired immediately. No, her punishment was worse. She was demoted to entry level, moved to the basement office that everyone swore was haunted by the ghost of work-life balance, and given a new supervisor, Patricia's cousin, who'd just been hired as a department manager. The universe, it seemed, had a sense of humor and a subscription to karma. That afternoon, Jennifer texted me for the first time since Christmas. I need to come home. This was all a mistake. I responded with a photo of the divorce papers and a smiley face emoji. She tried calling, but I was busy with something more important, my own promotion. See, while Jennifer was destroying our marriage, I'd been crushing it at work. My latest software project had saved the company $2 million in efficiency improvements. My boss called me in, not to fire me, but to offer me the position of Senior Development Director. The salary increase alone would cover what Jennifer had stolen and then some. Scott, my boss said, I heard about your situation. If you need time off. Actually, sir, I've never been more focused. Turns out getting betrayed is great for productivity. I've redesigned half our systems out of pure spite. He laughed. Well, keep getting betrayed then. Your code quality has never been better. The industry gossip mill started churning when Greg tried to get a new job. Every interview would go great until they called references. Patricia's father had connections everywhere, and while he never said anything libelous, he'd always end with, "You should do a thorough background check." Very thorough. That was corporate speak for "this man is radioactive." Jennifer's LinkedIn profile went from senior marketing manager to marketing professional seeking new opportunities to open to any position in the span of 2 weeks. Her endorsements disappeared faster than free samples at Costco. The divorce proceedings were scheduled for Valentine's Day because the universe loves irony. Richardson had prepared everything meticulously. The prenup made it simple. Infidelity clause meant Jennifer got nothing from before the marriage, and only her personal belongings from during. Jennifer showed up with a lawyer who looked like he'd rather be getting a root canal. She'd gone from designer suits to office clearance rack. The bags under her eyes had their own bags. Greg was nowhere to be seen. He'd ghosted her the moment his wife's lawyers got involved. Your Honor, Jennifer's lawyer began, already sounding defeated. My client contests the prenuptial agreement on the grounds of coercion. The judge, a woman who looked like she'd seen every ridiculous divorce excuse possible, raised an eyebrow. Was there a gun to her head? No, but was she threatened? Not exactly. Did she have legal representation when signing? Jennifer's lawyer shuffled papers. Her father was her legal representation. The judge actually smiled. Her father, who is a practicing attorney, represented her interests in creating a document that protected both parties. Motion denied. Continue. Richardson stood up. Your Honor, we're seeking full enforcement of the prenuptial agreement, return of embezzled funds totaling $15,000, and sole ownership of the marital home, which was inherited from my client's grandmother. What about alimony? Jennifer suddenly shouted, ignoring her lawyer's attempt to quiet her. The judge looked at her over her glasses. Ma'am, you publicly admitted to infidelity, embezzled marital funds, and according to these documents, quit your job planning to be supported by your affair partner. Alimony? You're lucky you're not facing criminal charges. The fire sale of our marriage took exactly 37 minutes. Jennifer signed the papers with shaking hands. As she walked out, she turned to me one last time. I really did love you once. No, I said, you loved what I did for you. There's a difference. 2 weeks later, I got a call from Qley. You need to see Jennifer's Facebook. She'd posted a long, rambling message about finding herself and growing from mistakes. The comment section was brutal. Her own friends were roasting her. Someone had commented, "Didn't you just post last month about how Greg was so much better? How's that working out?" Greg, meanwhile, was living in his car. Patricia had taken the house, both cars, except the one he was living in, and most of his savings. His kids wouldn't talk to him. His career was over. He'd gone from six-figure executive to delivering food for DoorDash. I know because he delivered Thai food to my office one day. The look on his face when he saw me was worth the $40 tip I gave him. Scott, he started. Just the food, Greg. Nothing else needs delivering here. The house felt different without Jennifer's chaos. Quieter, but not lonely. Peaceful, but not empty. I converted her craft room, where no crafts were ever made, into a gaming setup. Her walk-in closet became my home office. The bathroom counter that once held 47 different skincare products now just had my toothbrush and some soap. It was gloriously simple. But the best shutdown came when Jennifer tried one last manipulation. She showed up at my door at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday, crying and possibly drunk. Scott, please. I made a mistake. We can fix this. Couples therapy. I'll do anything. I looked at her through the Ring doorbell camera. Jennifer, you're trespassing. You have 30 seconds to leave before I call the police. You don't mean that? 7 years, Scott? Doesn't that mean anything? It meant everything to me. That's why I'm not opening this door. 20 seconds. She stood there for another 10 seconds, then walked away. The next day, a restraining order was filed. Richardson had anticipated this and had the paperwork ready. The judge approved it immediately given the evidence of harassment. 6 months later, I was at a coffee shop working on my laptop when someone said, "You're Scott, aren't you? Greg's friend from college?" I looked up to see a woman who looked familiar, but I couldn't place. She laughed. "I'm Patricia's sister, Emma. We met briefly at that disastrous New Year's dinner." Emma was Patricia's younger sister, a pediatric surgeon who'd been living abroad until recently. She had Patricia's sharp intelligence, but with a warmth that made you feel like you'd known her forever. We talked for 3 hours. Coffee turned into lunch. Lunch turned into a walk in the park. "I heard about everything that happened," she said. "Patricia showed me your PowerPoint. It was legendary. Slide 15 with the financial pie chart, chef's kiss." We started meeting regularly, not dating, just existing in the same space. She was going through her own stuff, a broken engagement to someone who thought pediatric surgeon meant babysitter with a medical degree. We bonded over our mutual appreciation for people showing their true colors. Meanwhile, Jennifer's life had become a cautionary tale. She was living with her parents, working retail at the mall where we'd once shopped for our first apartment furniture. Qley told me Jennifer had tried to start a lifestyle blog about bouncing back from life's challenges, but it had 12 subscribers, and 8 of them were her mom's book club friends. Greg had tried to reinvent himself as a life coach, which is apparently what failed executives become when they can't get hired anywhere. His website promised to teach you success strategies from real-world experience. Patricia's lawyer sent him a cease and desist when he tried to use their marriage as a case study in overcoming obstacles. The obstacle, of course, being consequences. The next Christmas, exactly 1 year after the disaster, I hosted a party, a real one. with people who actually cared about each other. My parents were there, genuinely happy for the first time in months. Qley came with her new boyfriend, a guy who ran a true crime podcast, and thought her sister documentation was brilliantly savage. Emma was there too, helping in the kitchen, laughing at my brother's terrible jokes. We weren't officially together yet, but there was something brewing stronger than the coffee she was making. "So," my dad said, raising his beer, "what did we learn this year?" "Don't marry someone who thinks better means has more money," Jake offered. "Always get a prenup," Qley added, filming for her podcast, which now had 100,000 subscribers. "Trust your gut," my mom said, looking at me meaningfully. "You knew something was wrong for months." Emma raised her wine glass. "When someone shows you their true colors, believe them the first time." But I had the final toast. Here's to wishes that come true in ways we never expected. Jennifer wished she'd never met me. Now she gets to live in a world where it's like I never existed in her life. And I get to live in a world where I learned the difference between someone who loves you and someone who loves what you do for them. Patricia showed up fashionably late with her kids and a new boyfriend, a federal prosecutor who specialized in financial fraud cases. "Sorry we're late. Had to stop by Greg's apartment to serve him papers. He owes 3 months of child support." "Where's he living now?" someone asked. "His mother's basement." Full circle from college, really. The party went late into the night. No drama, no surprise revelations, no cruelty. Just people who'd survived their own disasters, celebrating the fact that sometimes the worst thing that happens to you becomes the best thing that could have happened. A week later, I got one last text from Jennifer. "I see you're with Emma now. I hope you're happy." I didn't respond, but I did smile, because I was happy. Not the fake, Instagram-worthy happiness Jennifer had always chased, but the real kind. The kind that comes from knowing exactly who you are and who deserves to be in your life. Greg lasted another month in town before moving 3 states away to start fresh. His LinkedIn now lists him as an entrepreneur, which is LinkedIn speak for unemployed and running out of options. Jennifer eventually got promoted back to assistant manager at the store, which she posted about like she'd won a Nobel Prize. New year, new me, new opportunities. The comments were turned off. And me? I was sitting in my peaceful house, working on code that would earn me another promotion, occasionally texting with Emma about dinner plans, and remembering that Christmas morning when my world fell apart. Best gift Jennifer ever gave me was showing me who she really was. Because when someone tells you Greg is a lot better, and Greg turns out to be a lying, cheating, broke narcissist living in his mom's basement, you realize that better is relative. And relatively speaking, I was doing just fine. The moral of the story? When someone shows you their true colors, don't try to repaint them. And when they wish they'd never met you, grant that wish so thoroughly that they'll wish they'd never made it. Because the opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference. And nothing says indifference quite like success, happiness, and a restraining order. Karma doesn't always come quickly, but when it does, it tends to arrive with compounded interest and a gift receipt for everything you thought you'd gotten away with.